Hey guys, Coach Chris here, back with another video. Continuing with my first round game in the 2023 Kyle Weeks Memorial. Opponent opened with e4, and this was an unrated tournament, and I decided to experiment with the French defense e6. So knight f3, more typical, is d4. Then I would have responded with d5. In the game, opponent played knight f3, still d5. Fighting for the center. Opponent exchanged and played bishop d3, and this is just awful. The bishop blocks in the d-pawn, the d-pawn blocks in the dark squared bishop, which blocks in the rook. More typical would be d4 and then bishop d3, and then white's pieces make sense. The bishop will come out to g5, the knight will go to d2, white will castle, and white's fine there. It's not a very ambitious way to play for white, but it's fine. Normally, in a French exchange, I would be aiming for something like bishop d6, knight e7, bishop f5, so that all of my minor pieces make sense, and I would like to exchange my light squared bishop for white's light squared bishop, because my center pawn would be on a light square, and so this bishop would be restricted by that center pawn, and white's light squared bishop, which is usually on d3 after a pawn is on d4, would be his best attacking piece. But after what we get in the game, now I don't want to trade off this bishop because it blocks in his whole queenside development, and so I just develop normally knight f6. He plays queen e2 check, which is just one check. I wanted to develop anyway, so bishop e7 blocks the check and develops. Castles, castles, and b3. And this kind of makes sense because what else is the dark square bishop going to do? So white tries to develop it on the log diagonal. Rook e8, just putting the rook on the open file. Queen d1 to get off that same file. And now white has no development. I decided to take the center with c5, bishop b2, knight c6, and now look at the difference in the armies. I have the center, I have my pieces developed, black is already hit minus 1.3, and we're at equal material, which is just wild. Knight a3, and there are a lot of ways to play here. I decided to go with a6, just to re-emphasize that this knight can't go anywhere. This bishop looks silly. I didn't really feel like I needed to risk or rush anything, and so I just kept the knight out of a6. And if white's point was to play c4, well, then the move I would have played would be d4. And now the knight and bishop look truly awful. The whole queen side is just entombed over here. And so that's what I would have played if he had played c4, but that was not his idea. He went for knight g5. And white has absolutely no business attacking here. I have plenty of pieces that can come to the aid of the king if necessary, and white really has no attackers. Maybe you could argue that these bishops are pointing to the king, but again, I've got plenty of attackers here. The position does not call for an attack, and so I just played h6 thinking that he would go right back. But that was not his idea. He played knight takes f7, which simply just does not work. And so when your opponent plays an unsound sacrifice, you just take it. Don't be afraid of ghosts, calculate, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Even if it looks scary, you just have to calculate. And here it was clear to me that his attack should not work. Because I haven't violated any opening principles, and he has, and so I knew I would be fine here. So I just took the free knight. He played bishop takes f6 so that it would free up the h5 square, which was protected by the knight in this position. So he took, but now he's traded off his attacker. I've replaced it with a defender. My king has to be fine here. He throws in a check, but again, it's just one check, and I played king f8, staying off these light squares. and black is just fine. And he played queen g6, hoping to get in a check and hoping that he could play bishop g6. The engine is not buying any of this. It says just take that free rook in the corner. But by far the simplest, and the move that made him resign immediately, was knight e5. And so this is where he resigned. Play could have continued queen h7, trying to fulfill the original mission of giving a check. But after just knight takes d3, what is white supposed to do here? This is just a check after king f7 is actually white's queen getting trapped in the corner. And so if white recaptures, well, I mean, lots of moves here, but let's just say we take that free rook. What exactly does white have to show for this insane material deficit? Queen can protect the king, rook controls the only open file, bishop can develop to here or here. I mean, white's just up a full rook. And so opponent resigned after knight e5, but I've been on this trend lately where I've just been trying to play solid chess and letting my opponents blunder away the game, and it's worked out pretty well so far. Now obviously this was a much lower rated opponent, but you know, that's the way you can gain lots of rating points at lower levels, is you just don't bingus. Develop the solid position, control the center when you can, and let your opponents play unprincipled chess, and then when they do, you just take the material they offer you. So yeah, nothing special in this game. The key points really are just I developed naturally, white didn't, and then knight takes f7 just does not work. Just keep your head and calculate, and don't be afraid of ghosts. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about this round 1 game. I'll keep this one short. Thanks for watching. Keep grinding those tactics.